I want to welcome you to this broadcast where we're going to focus on some key information that was shared at the recently held National Medicare Supplement, Senior Insurance Products, and Short-Term Care Sales Summit, all in one. So my name is Jesse Sloan, and I'm going to be your presenter today. I'm really delighted to do this broadcast. It's the only one that I'm doing on this subject for Insurance WebEx. And I thank them for allowing me to be a featured, one of their featured mentors. What I thought would be of interest to everybody is information. So I run several trade organizations. The two that are particularly pertinent here are the American Association for Medicare Supplement Insurance and the National Advisory Center for Short-Term Care Information. So as head of these organizations, one of the things that I do is organize the industry conference. And this is a very large event. It took place in April in Dallas, and there's several components to it. And I'll go into that in more detail. But what I've decided I thought would be of interest was on one of the days, we open the doors for free for agents. We allow them to come in, and we have a series of sessions that they can attend, and they can meet with all the exhibitors and everything like that. And I pulled some information from some of those presentations that I thought would be of interest to you. If you have a pen and paper there, you should definitely write down the website, medicaresupp.org/library. And here is why. When you go to that page, you will be able to do two things. The first is, if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll be able to actually access and watch videos recorded at the National MedSupp and Short-Term Care Conference. Now, most of those sessions are for insurance companies, for general agencies, for regulatory people and others, but it's free access. You can watch on any device. You just click and you're going to see the speakers and you're going to see their presentation. We also, the recording company makes all of this available. They make available recordings from the agent sales days that we've done, not just at the 2017 event, but the 2016 and 2015 events. And the recording company charges a nominal fee. I think it's $49 to access those, but there is a code there that offers you a 33% saving. So, you know, there's free and there's a nominal cost for some of the others. One other advertising message before we get started. So the American Association for Medicare Supplement Insurance has a Find a Local Medicare Supplement Agent Directory. We created this because, frankly, while there are many entities that will sell today over the phone and over the internet, and that's great, there are many consumers who want to seek a local and speak with a local specialist, someone who can offer them and explain to them their Medicare options and obviously sell them insurance. So the association has what really is the nation's #1 directory, and I urge you to go to medicaresupp.org/get-listed, because one, you can type in who's grabbed your zip code. It's a zip code based system, and if you want to add your listing, there is a charge for that as well. But you definitely can do that. And I'm not sure why it's not on this slide, but if you type in WebX20, for some reason it came off, WebX20 or the code SAVE20 now, you'll be able to save 20% on the listing. Oh, there it is. It's on the next slide. Yes, just type in the code when you get to step 2. So a 3-year listing works out to $73 a year, and what we always tell agents is that, you know, if you're listed for 3 years and you get one consumer, we'll never promise you a consumer lead, but because it's the only online directory for the industry and because of the organization's name and stature, we get a lot of media attention. That does drive consumers to the website. If you type in WebX20 when you get get to step 2 in the referral code box, be sure to hit that apply referral code button. Some agents don't. It will reduce your cost by 20%. So it makes it about $73 a year for the 3-year listing. Okay, let's get started. I pulled a couple of different sessions and some information. This one was on market trends in the MedSupp industry. It's information shared by Jared Strock, who's a consulting actuary with CSG Actuarial. They're one of the larger actuarial companies in the MedSupp space, and they also do some very innovative services for companies and for agents. And so I pulled some of and shared some of the information that he shared during his talk. And basically, I will kind of give a quick overview, but I will let you read the slides, and then everything will be available at some point online, so you can go back and watch again. Here's really the interesting, and I think the spectacular news about MedSupp. Look at the growth, basically a doubling of sales premium in the past 10 years. And that is partly because of the number of baby boomers that are growing, but it's also due to, I think, a maturing of the population and a good economic environment as people, come off and are more familiar with plans where they've had independence and choice. So the good news is more consumers are buying MedSupp. So that not only is premium up, but 31% more individuals have MedSupp than 10 years ago. And so his was one of the early sessions at the conference. This was the largest MedSupp conference we've ever run. And I think that's indicative of the industry's growth. Thirdly, I thought this was rather interesting, that unlike some other fields in the insurance marketplace where you have fewer carriers offering products, the fact that you have 40% more carriers is certainly welcome news for an industry and for all of those who are involved. Some other information that he shared: premium rate increases, have not been increasing at the same high percentages that they did in 2011, 2012, and so while they were up in 2016, when you have some nominal or stable rate increases, that's good, and again, shows a good sign. I found this from his presentation particularly interesting. You've all read about the statistic about 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every day. Well, in 2013, basically we hit a milestone of 3.5 million people turning 65 during the year, and that number will again hit in this year and next year, and will continue to peak. So if you're watching this, if you're in the MedSupp space, this is good news. You've got some really good years to look forward to. If you're not in the MedSupp space, it's definitely worth looking at the census and the population and thinking about why you're missing out and creating some competition. And obviously the same thing, while nobody can project what the future will hold, Jared did share this slide, which I thought was extremely optimistic, a prediction that right now there are 13.1 million policyholders in MedSupp, and if you look at this, and you plan to be in business by 2025, you will have not quite double that many, but you certainly will have a lot. So very interesting, and the same thing with new business premium. Very optimistic outlook for the MedSupp space. I thought that was really good, obviously, to kick off. One of the presentations that took place was focused on, and this was for the Agent Day, was maximizing the value of your MedSupp business. Dan Schmedlin, who's the CEO of LTC Global Group, and they buy blocks of business, shared basically his view of the marketplace and what one needs to think about, and whether you're close to the end of a career in insurance or just getting started and looking forward to, you look at those positive sales numbers and say, wow, if I really focus on it, obviously at some point you're either going to stop, retire, sell the business, etc. So I was really pleased that he came to give a talk like this to agents about it, and shared, sort of what I call the small print, the things you don't know. I'm not an expert in this, so I'm not going to share with you, all of his points. That would be, watching the video would obviously do that. But I thought some of the key considerations that if you're just getting started, this is important stuff to learn about at the beginning, before you pitch your tent, rather than at the end where it's too late to look and find out that the carrier did not permit assignments and you've spent 10 years building a block of business that you're not able to sell. So I thought this was a really good time, and also the information that he shared about what affects valuations was of interest, because, as I say, when we do these conferences, you have people there that are at various stages of their career, and often, and we get calls at the association from time to time of people who look and say, how do I, I'm looking to retire, how do I sell my business? So I thought his outlook on all of it was real valuable. And the same thing on possible deal killers. That could impact, from tax liens to non-vested commissions and obviously regulatory problems. So kind of a general interesting talk. I only covered this for a minute with you guys because it's not my area of expertise, but it's there. One of the talks, and actually was intended to be given by Stacy Varney. Stacy changed jobs, went to a tech company just before the conference started, but it was shared at the conference by one of her people. And it was Gen is one of the largest reinsurers. They're owned by Berkshire Hathaway, which is a name familiar, I'm sure, to many of you because of Warren Buffett. They are a leader in the reinsurance field and always can be counted on to do some good research. And so they did what I thought was an interesting study of consumers. I'll just take a second to go back. So what do consumers value from their agents in particular? And since she was speaking at the agent day, this is certainly pertinent. What really was interesting is that almost half of the consumers that they surveyed reported that the agent who originally assisted them or sold them has not kept in contact. Now a little bit less than half, a third, a little bit more than a third, have kept in contact. What you'll see in the future slides was whether that really had an impact, and I can't tell you whether that will be the same going forward, but again, I wanted to use this presentation to share some highlights of things that I found of interest. So what do consumers look for? 68%, you can see a little over 2/3, prefer an ongoing conversation be held over the phone or through email, obviously, as opposed to, I would assume, a meeting, and certainly, it's pretty obvious to do it at important updates, if important updates occur, or at anniversary time. About a quarter made a change in their coverage since they first, turned 65 and started working with a MedSupp agent. So you can see, when did they switch? And this was I thought kind of an interesting slide. So 28% switched since turning 65, and they've kept in contact. 34% switched where there had not been an agent contact. So, their conclusion, maintaining contact with the original agent does not appear to result in a greater likelihood of switching. Not significant, but still is important. I thought what was interesting was one of the slides where they talked about what did consumers value for those consumers who were loyal, dedicated to their agent. And so you can kind of read for yourself. Some of them are obviously pretty obvious, as I call it. You have the client's best interest in mind, knowledgeable, and maintains contact even if only one time a year. That helped the client feel that they could contact the agent when they had questions. And we do get those kinds of calls at the association as well. From people looking and saying, it's one of the reasons that we started that online directory for agents. So just again, a reminder, if you joined us late, a couple of opportunities for you. I'm sharing just some highlights from the various national conferences, and the reason I say various is there basically were 3 different events all rolled into one opportunity in Dallas this April. You can go to MedicareSupp.org, sell more. That will take you just to the sessions where you can find the recordings from the agent free day. And if you enter the code there, you'll save 33%. And then also, if you are an agent, I encourage you to go to the website, MedicareSupp.org, to check out the Find an Agent directory. You can very easily, on the home page or on any other page, enter your zip code, see who the closest agent to you is. For consumers who are looking for someone local, this is a very powerful resource. A 3-year listing, and we're offering a 20% discount. Appreciate WebEx allowing me to speak and reach people. If you type in during step 2, WebEx 20, that little referral box will come up. Ask you if you have a referral code. You hit yes, and then you type it in, and be sure to hit the apply referral code. This is during step 2. It will end up costing you $73 a year. And I'll repeat for everybody, I'll never promise this isn't where you enter your directory and immediately consumers are going to call you. It's not that kind of system. We go out and do the best we can to create awareness for MedSupp among consumers. MedicareSupp.org, if you do a Google search for Medicare supplement agents, right under the ads that Google charges for, the association's website is the #1 organic listing, and that does drive traffic. And our view is that if you do a 3-year listing and you get 1 sale over 3 years, although the testimonials that we post from agents are real agents who are listed and share with us, many of them are really, really pleased. I always laugh and say, they don't like to give testimonials because they don't want competition, and I understand that. But I encourage you to, if it's part of marketing, take a shot and add your listing. So, continuing, one of the focuses of the conference was short-term care insurance, an area that I'm particularly supportive of and glad to share a lot of information as I head up the National Advisory Center for Short-Term Care Information. So again, in keeping with having this presentation share information and data and stats that I think are helpful. At the summit, it was the first opportunity to release data that the Advisory Center had gathered from the short-term care insurers. And the good news was policy sales for short-term care for the insurers was up almost 17%, and premium was up. And as I always tell people, increases are good. Again, sharing the data from the survey that we released literally as we were walking into the conference. Who buys short-term care insurance? This is a senior product. Shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. As you can see, the vast majority of buyers are between 60 and 80, although one of the nice things about short-term care insurance, if you're not familiar with it, is that some of the companies will accept applicants up to age 89. Gender, a little over half were female. You know, I think you know, my knowledge and research into the industry is that this is an ideal product for what I call women who live alone, meaning they're divorced or widowed or never married, because it just provides them with some coverage and affordability to do some long-term care planning. We also shared data on claims. I think this is very important, especially for an industry that's not highly recognized. And so new claims from the short-term care insurers were up almost 25%. And while that seems like a lot, remember that this is still a relatively new and small industry. So not cause to panic and say, oh my God, did these people price the products correctly? Are they heading for, you know, a major catastrophe? It's easy to do that up off a small base. And interestingly, as part of the Advisory Center's study, we polled when do claims start. And, you know, the tendency has, as I show the little birthday cake with the 89, because as a reminder that I think it was a little over 11% of the people who were buying new policies were in their 80s. But what this showed is that people are making claim on these policies in their younger ages, in their 60s, 70s, 80s, etc. And obviously, many are over age 80 because that is the time when you're going to need recovery care, long-term care type services. I always tell people, by the way, you can learn more about selling short-term care insurance if you go to the Advisory Center's website. It's a long web address, short-term, although it's an obvious one, short-term care insurance. It's a .org. And then if you put in the /sell for agents, that's a great place to go. There's a free video that I gave about a 50-minute talk for agents at the National Short-Term Care Summit, and we've put this available so that you can watch it free of charge. And I don't mention companies or anything in particular, but for agents who are interested in learning more about that industry, this was something about a 50-minute video that filmed during the national conference in Dallas. One of the sessions that I talked about and where we focused on for agents was where did short-term care fit? That is also covered in the middle, in the longer video, and it's obviously for filling gaps in Medicare. This is something that people don't understand. I thought based on feedback from people who came up and spoke after the event, one of the areas that agents, especially agents who focus on seniors, are not familiar with is on what's called observation status. And I won't spend the time to really go into this in great detail, but basically what I shared there and what you should know as an agent is that observation status impacts Medicare beneficiaries who go for hospital care. And several million are impacted every year. And there can be, I'm hesitant to use the word dire, though they could be dire financial consequences. And so, while some of that's covered in some of the talks, if you still have your pen out, I always like to give people helpful information. There's a great video, news segment on the NBC National, the nightly news, that was done in 2014. And it really is worth watching so that you understand what the issue is and so that you can clearly communicate it to others. And so you can see, it's the same thing, the shorttermcareinsurance.org website, then /NBC-GAP, and that will take you to a page where you can click and just shortcut access to the video. One of the pieces of data that was shared focused on short-term care as an option to long-term care, and I'll share that with you, not to throw any editorial spin onto anything, because I also run the American Association for Long-Term Care Insurance. I've been an ardent supporter for several decades of long-term care insurance, but the reality and the facts are the facts. And I like to live in a fact-based world, and the fact is that individual LTCI policy sales are down dramatically. I started this presentation talking about how Supp sales were doubling. That's not true about long-term care insurance. And part of the factors and the numbers that were shared at this conference is, why cost is an issue. And this slide really, kind of shares the data that a significant number of people over 65 in America have no savings for retirement. And many who do, only 13. Well, if you look at the image on the right, and you look and you say, okay, in retirement, let's say you're going to need $100,000 or more. Only 26% have over $100,000 saved for retirement. And that's a staggering number. That means everybody else is basically living on Social Security. And so, they need options. Health in the long-term care insurance industry is always an issue as the market has shrunk and as there are fewer insurers in the marketplace and more unhealthy Americans. I don't have to tell you, we read about it all the time, how, the percentage of Americans that are obese, percentage that have diabetes, it gets worse at older ages. The insurers are declining more and more policies, and age has always been an issue. And negative news for the long-term care insurance industry is an issue, and that was shared. So short-term care is a viable long-term care planning option, and the conference spent a bit of time talking about that to the attendees, that it's a viable option for those who want some long-term care protection in whether it's their home or assisted living or skilled nursing care. And one of the pieces of data that was shared at the conference that I'm going to share with you now, which I thought was, obviously something that we've researched and shared there. Most of the talks were given by others, but I have permission to obviously share this, is that while many agents are very familiar with long-term care and long-term care needs, it's sort of an industry that's been trained with the worst case scenario. And that's okay. Selling doom and gloom is part of insurance sales, but selling doom and gloom forces you to sell people very expensive coverage, and you now connect that with the fact that people don't have income, don't have savings, they can't afford. So I try to counter doom and gloom and say that while most people call it long-term care, most claims are actually not long. 41% of long-term care insurance claims last less than a year. So that means almost half of the people who first qualify, go on claim, their claims are going to be less than a year. So a lot of time was spent at different sessions talking about long-term care, short-term care, etc. I'm not going to spend much time talking on this because, as I said, it's in a lot of this is in some of that other video that we shared with you. Let's see. Okay. One of the other presentations that I thought was rather interesting focused on senior dental products, something that I'm not familiar with, but we had Jen Matthews, who's the sales director for Medico Insurance Company, come and talk, and her presentation focused on the impact of periodontal disease and other dental needs for the since this was a Medicare / senior / short-term care insurance event. This obviously focused on dental for older Americans. And and some of this is obviously data that we've talked about before, the number of people that have it. But what Jen pointed out is that Medicare does not cover a majority of dental services. And also the statistic that I thought was fascinating is that 40% of seniors have not had a dental visit in the past year. And clearly that's because they either haven't had a problem or they just are saving money and don't want to do it. So you can see that dental insurance is not something that the senior market readily has. People at younger ages still do, often because it's something that they can get through their work. But once they've retired and go on Medicare, they no longer have this, even though it is something that they really can use and need. So her talk focused on that. One of the other interesting talks on the senior track was from Jerry Larkin at Genworth. He talked quite a bit about a rather, let's see where it comes. Let's get this whole thing up there. Genworth came out with a rather unique, and while, sessions were informational in nature, sometimes obviously they, were promotional in nature. So while many people are familiar with annuities, Genworth came out with an underwritten annuity that is ideal for people that have health issues, particularly where it relates to long-term care. And so basically, Genworth, which is a leading long-term care insurance company, knows the kinds of conditions that are going to create a need for long-term care, and then they obviously, in pricing long-term care insurance, can kind of, judge how long somebody will live with those conditions. So they're basically applying the same thing to an annuity, which would give the policyholder a greater payout come once they did it, if they had a need for long-term care. And so rather interesting product and development that certainly fit in the senior marketplace. Let's see, and I won't go through, basically the two choices, except to say that that if you watch their presentation, you can kind of see it. So those were, I'm just looking, I wanted to keep this down to about 30 minutes. I'm about a minute or two over. I apologize for that. So I will repeat for everybody watching. There are a couple of really great opportunities for you. The association basically pays almost $20,000 to record the sessions at the Medicare Supplement, Short-Term Care, and also Senior Products Conference. We make many of the videos available free of charge. One, because that benefits the industry, and also, to be honest, if you're getting access to the free videos, we're going to ask you to sign in with your email. We don't do anything with those emails other than keep you apprised of things that the association's doing and basically when the next conference will be. We try to do it every 12 to 18 months. So if you go to medicaresupp.org/library, you'll see several things on that page. First, you'll see how to access the recordings from the agent free day. There is a nominal charge. The recording company will charge $49. That will get you 1 year of access to each of the different conference, not an individual, but I think for the 2017, there's something like 27 different videos. It will tell you how many are up there. You will be able to watch them on any device with internet access. Once you do it, you'll have a year so that you can watch, you can come back, you will see the speakers, and you will see all of their slide presentations. Stop, start, take a break, come back, watch them again on any device. The others, the full conference, is available completely free of charge. That's the national event. And as I say, you can, watch a few minutes of a session and say, no, this isn't for me. This is more for an insurer. There are a whole host of wonderful sessions that you will find there, including, I'm pretty sure, one of the keynote speakers came from AARP and just, shared a very inspirational talk with everybody. So that's one thing. And then lastly, last plug, if you are an agent, I urge you to go to medicaresupp.org. Check out who, if anybody, has listed themselves on our Find an Agent directory, and to consider adding your own listing to it. Don't forget, many agents do, which is okay, but we are very happy to offer those who've taken the time to watch this broadcast. We thank WebEx, Insurance WebEx, for allowing us to do it. Be sure to type in WebEx20 in the referral code box, click the orange Apply Referral Code box, and you will therefore pay 20% less. So I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch this. I hope that I was able to share a few highlights from the conference that will benefit you and what you do and might interest you in either accessing some of the free videos or even some of the videos from the various agent sales days. Thanks again.